All right, so let's talk some Brooklyn Nets. Kyrie Irving opting into the last year of his contract for 37 M's. He will not be getting the max from the Nets. He was pushing for it. He was trying to see if he could get them to budge, but they weren't going for it. And can we really blame them? I'm not going to judge what somebody has, any personal decisions that anybody has. We see the media crushing Kyrie for, the reasons that he was out last season, but in the form of a business, it's hard to really hitch your wagon onto a guy who, for lack of better words, is unpredictable. A guy who isn't the most reliable guy, a guy who, Kyrie Irving, he's not going to play 82 games. Even if Kyrie Irving is locked in next season, he's not going to play 82 games. He's not always going to be available. He's going to take some days off. He's going to have something that's on his mind, something that's pushing him away from basketball at times during the season. So Kyrie isn't necessarily the best guy as like a face of the franchise, dude that you hitch your wagon to. But when he comes along with Kevin Durant, you got to keep Kyrie Irving, because if anybody can keep Kyrie Irving in check, and nobody really can, but if somebody can, it's KD. We saw Kyrie and KD have some success. They were up 2-0 against Milwaukee the season before, but now they're in their fourth year together, and that year they were cut short in the playoffs because Kyrie and James Harden were both fighting injuries. The year before, KD was out the whole season. And this year, they didn't have Ben Simmons or James Harden. They didn't have a third fiddle, and they got swept in the first round. So I say all that to say, what are we getting? What does next season look like for the Brooklyn Nets? If you have Kyrie Irving, let's say everything's a go. Let's say everything is going great. Kyrie Irving, you're getting the best out of him. We know what Kyrie Irving playing at a high level looks like. We're getting the usual Kevin Durant playing at a MVP level. We're getting Ben Simmons even coming back and looking like he looked like in Philly during his last year, where he was an elite two-way player playing defense, playmaking downhill, and the 76ers were the one seed. We're getting that Ben Simmons, who was in the All-Star game, I believe as a starter, but he was in that All-Star game. Maybe as a starter. Don't quote me on that. But we're getting that Ben Simmons, and we're getting probably Nicholas Claxton, maybe Andre Drummond or something down low, rebounding. If you have Claxton, he switches well onto guards on the perimeter, a little more athleticism. If he can make his damn free throws, he would actually be a pretty solid center. Because Claxton does have touch on the perimeter a little bit, so it is weird out of all the big men that he's the one who struggles with the free throws, having the free throw demons right now in his career. But with Claxton at the 5 or whatever, they got four guys right there that can switch, they can rebound, they can defend, a couple playmakers, a couple scorers in that core right there. But who's the fifth guy going to be is the question for me. Where does Brooklyn go to get that fifth guy on the court who they can trust in that lineup? Because there were too many times last year where it was Bruce Brown, and I got nothing against Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown is a good player. He could start for them next year. I like Bruce Brown. I like what he's done for his career. And they had Seth Curry, they had Patty Mills, Joe Harris, these guys, Dragic, all these guys. They have a lot of guys who are just kind of one-way players, guys who can shoot the three but don't bring anything else. You don't really need to have all these guys, If Bruce Brown could shoot it better or play make a little better, he'd be perfect because he's a two-way kind of guy. But these guys that they have, Joe Harris, Patty Mills, Dragic, Seth Curry, they're just one-way players. They're guys who can shoot it, but they can't really defend or they can't really play make. The Brooklyn Nets need a fifth guy in that lineup. With the four guys I mentioned, they need a fifth guy who can, shoot well enough, can defend well enough, can rebound well enough, can make that extra pass. They need a fifth guy who could just really play, because there's going to be times where it's just Kyrie and KD creating in the half court, and you got Ben Simmons and Nicholas Claxton, one of them in the dunker spot, one of them in the corner, or one of them at the top of the key just, giving entry passes into the post or high post for one of the scorers. But you need a fifth guy out there who could just, make the right read. And are they going to go into free agency? Does that mean getting a Nicholas Batum who could, pass and guard at his position, hit an open shot? Can they afford a Kyle Anderson? Could they they can't get a Tyus Jones, but, could you take a flyer out on TJ Warren? Could you get TJ Warren to come? The Nets are a team that's just been taking flyers on everybody. They get the most random guys on their team. So Could you get a TJ Warren? Could that work out well for you? Who knows? But they got to get a fifth guy in there who could play, a fifth guy who could fit in with that core and who could make the things that I'm talking about. But right now, the way that their roster's set up, they just don't have any depth on the bench. They don't have good coaching. They don't really have a leader, a veteran leader who they'll listen to. Kyrie and KD kind of march to the beat of their own drum. Nobody's really the leader on that team. So I would love to see a veteran like a Nicholas Batum, or if TJ Warren works out, I would love to see a guy like that just, insert themselves into the lineup and be one of those five guys. Because if I can put Ben Simmons at the 1 and he's playing hard, he's engaged. I got Kyrie Irving at the 2 and he's going all out. I got a KD and a Batum, or a KD and a TJ Warren, balling out at the forward spots, and Claxton or Drummond or something at the 5, preferably Claxton, because Drummond's a stat pattern, but Drummond doesn't, necessarily give you everything you want at the 5 spot, but, that group of 5, that would be very good. But, like I said, if you take Batum out, or you take TJ Warren out, or whoever they could get, whoever could fit that mold of that 5th spot, if you take that 5th spot and you put like a Seth Curry, there's going to be times where the offense gets stagnant in the half court when you get physical with KD, and when you start doubling Kyrie. It's going to look like the Boston series all over again. You're not going to have an extra guy, because as much as Ben Simmons can facilitate and, cut to the rim and do athletic stuff, because he can't shoot, the half-court offense in the playoffs is going to get stagnant at times. So you need another guy in there who could pass a little bit, shoot a little bit, because Ben Simmons, he provides a lot, but at the same time, he's a great two-way player, but not being able to shoot really harms you in the half court, especially if you're going to roll with a center out there. Because that would be the easy solution, is say, okay, well, take Nicholas Claxton out and put Ben Simmons in the dunker spot. And if you put Ben Simmons at the dunker spot, then you can bring another shooter, or you could just have Bruce Brown out there. And maybe you can get away with that. Maybe you can go Kyrie, Ben Simmons, KD, and Bruce Brown, and you could just put a 5th guy in there who's a shooter or something. A Seth Curry, a Joe Harris, or you could pick up a guy in free agency, and that 5th guy could go in with a Bruce Brown or Seth Curry, and you don't even have to put Claxton in. So Ben Simmons could be the guy that hides in the dunker spot. But I just wouldn't do that, because you're giving up too much length. You're giving up a lot of boards. You're giving up a lot of defense. And I think that the Nets are going to have to find somewhat of a, if they're going to succeed in the postseason, they're going to have to find some type of defensive identity, because this team, as they're constructed right now, even if they add a little bit more, this team doesn't have enough on the offensive end to really just be like some juggernaut offensive team. I know that sounds crazy because they have KD and Kyrie, but in the postseason, KD and Kyrie are going to be the only guys on that team that could force the ball into the basket. And we saw how that went against Boston. Now, Boston has a historically great defense. Not every team is going to roll out there with a Boston defense, but KD and Kyrie as your only guys who could really put the ball in the hoop, it's just not enough. We've seen the Warriors just win the championship. Steph, of course, is going to do his thing, but Wiggins could put the ball in the hoop. Clay could put the ball in the hoop. Poole could put the ball in the hoop. You got to have guys who, they don't have to be great scorers, but they could put the ball in the hoop. Claxton isn't really going to put the ball in the hoop. Ben Simmons in the half court, he's not going to put the ball in the hoop. Bruce Brown's not going to put the ball in the hoop, So not in the half court in a playoff scenario, not really. He's improved his game a lot, but not really. So there's some things that are looming for the Brooklyn Nets. I expect them to come out the gates, and, they might even have a hot start during the regular season, and then KD has like some type of, minor injury where he starts taking it a little bit easier, or Kyrie takes some games off or something, and, they start coasting through the season a little bit. But at some point during the regular season, especially if Ben Simmons is around and playing well, that big three, they're going to go on a hot streak during the regular season that's going to have everybody like, whoa, are the Brooklyn Nets this and that? And you're going to see the media. They're going to go from not really buying into this Brooklyn team at the start of the season, and then the Brooklyn Nets are going to do some crazy stuff and maybe go on a crazy win streak, maybe win 7 in a row or 10 in a row or something like that, or 10 out of 12 or something like that, and then be the number one seed in the East for a while or something, and everyone's going to, wait, hold on, the Brooklyn Nets are dangerous or something like that, and then, people are, the postseason is going to come around, and if the Nets don't make the proper adjustments, then they're going to lose in the postseason, and people are going to say, well, what happened to the Nets? They were doing good, and they just choked or something, and I'm just saying, before the season starts, let's just look at it from an objective, just straight point of view. They have the pieces in place to be a good regular season team. They have the pieces in place who, depending on the matchup, they could even have some postseason success. But in order to really, really be a threat to come out the East, they're going to have a fifth guy in that starting lineup, or not starting lineup, but in that final lineup to close games out. And they're going to have some depth because they just don't have enough right now. They don't have enough two-way players. And something's going to have to go on with the coaching. And they're probably not going to get rid of Nash. It seems like management kind of feels for Nash, and they understand that he has had a lot going on. I don't think Nash makes any in-game adjustments, so I don't really feel too bad for him because I haven't really seen him do anything. But we'll see how it goes because these guys are going to have to buy into something. Even if they get that Batum piece that I'm talking about, or a TJ Warren and he plays well, even if KD, Kyrie, Ben Simmons are clicking at a high level, if these guys don't buy into something, maybe it doesn't have to be Nash's philosophy. Maybe it just has to be an energy in the locker room coming from Kyrie or coming from KD or coming from a veteran role player or something. But if they don't buy into something, if they don't develop some type of identity or some type of toughness or something that they lean on and, ride on each other for support and for strength. If they don't have that, this team, as talented as they are, they're not going to get past the Milwaukee Bucks team that has a culture. They're not going to get past the Boston Celtics team that has a culture. The best teams in the NBA right now have culture. The Los Angeles Clippers, they didn't have a culture when Doc Rivers was the coach. Now that Ty Lue is the coach, they have a culture. The Golden State Warriors have a culture. The Boston Celtics, the Milwaukee Bucks, they have a culture. The Denver Nuggets, they have a culture on the offensive end, being a team that swings the ball around, moves the ball, they work through Jokic or whatever. I wouldn't call that a culture, actually. I'd say that's a style of play. But, they're a team that's going to have to really develop a culture as far as, what are they going to buy into? What are they going to buy into? Because we see that Denver team, they're a team that they slack off and they get complacent. And then when they get behind in the series, then they want to start turning up and try to win some games and stuff, We see them, they don't really play defense until they know that they have to play defense. They don't play defense on a regular basis. So, that's another team that's just going to have to buy in. The best teams have cultures. The best organizations, the best groups, just in life, period, they have cultures. They have ideas. They have rules. They have structures. And the Brooklyn Nets, they're just all over the place. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited to see Kyrie Irving staying with the Brooklyn Nets. You guys know how I feel about Kyrie as a shot creator. I think when he's on, he's one of the best to ever do it just from a talent standpoint. He just needs to lock in, and we'll see how that goes. But, nonetheless, I think this Brooklyn Nets team is going to be a team to watch for this season. And they're always creating storylines, so this isn't going to be the last time that we talk about them. But as always, thank you guys for watching the videos. Until next time, peace.